I went to Vietnam for research. I'm a military historian, and I wanted to hear soldiers' stories from the Vietnam War. I thought a weekend retreat would be just another trip. But I was wrong. The cabin was old, wooden, and smelled like rain-soaked earth. It was humid, and the air felt heavy. I met a group of veterans. They were welcoming and eager to share. They laughed and told tales of bravery. I scribbled notes, feeling at ease, but when night fell, everything changed. I heard laughter from the trees. It echoed through the dark, sharp and distant. At first, I thought it was just the veterans enjoying their time together. I tried shaking off the feeling. It didn't work. The cries grew louder. The laughter slowly twisted into something darker, like a warning. I sat on the edge of the cabin, and a chill wrapped around me. I felt uneasy and told myself it was nothing. I listened harder. Out of nowhere, a feeling washed over me. What was out there? The veterans shared their stories. One spoke of a mission where the jungle whispered at night. I felt my skin prickle. I glanced at the trees again. I swear I saw a face, just for a quick second. I blinked, and it was gone. I wasn't sure if I was just tired or my mind was playing tricks on me that I couldn't shake the restlessness. I stepped outside for fresh air. The laughter from earlier faded into a heavy silence. I looked at the trees again. Shadows flickered, dancing just beyond my view. My heart started to race. Should I stay out or go back in? I didn't want to be alone. The final night crept in, thick and cloying. I pulled my jacket tight and tried to sleep, but sleep wouldn't come. Then I heard a sound. It was soft, almost a whisper. I felt my heart pound in my chest. I wanted to close my eyes but something kept me from it. I had to look, that's when I saw it. A figure stood near the trees. I can't describe it. Fear froze me. I took a step forward. My mind screamed to scream, but my voice failed me. The figure seemed to be staring right at me. Then it asked something. I couldn't make out the words, but it felt directed at me. It felt real that I turned around, hoping to find someone else there. But I was alone. The veterans were gone. I felt a cold wave wash over me. Panic set in. I looked back to the trees, but the figure was not there. My gut twisted. I rushed back inside, locking the door. When I returned home, something followed me. It's hard to explain. At night, I hear whispers. They call my name softly. I think about that night often. Maybe it was just the fear playing tricks on me. Or maybe it was something that will never leave. The days rolled on after my return, but the whispers wouldn't let go. I tried to push them back, to drown them in the noise of everyday life. I buried myself in research, scouring books and interviews, but the shadows of that cabin lurked in the corners of my mind. One evening, I found myself scrolling through recordings I had made during the retreat. Their voices were captivating but unsettling. I paused at an interview with an older veteran named Frank. He had the weight of stories etched on his face, each scar a mark of survival. I remembered the way he spoke of the jungle, his eyes distant as if he were retracing steps from decades past. Sometimes, Frank had said in that gravelly voice, the jungle doesn't let you go. The words hit me like a jolt. I had thought it was part of his storytelling, just another enigmatic comment from a man who had lived through hell. Now, they rang louder in my ears. Curiosity got the better of me. I needed to know what he meant. I reached for the phone and called the number listed in the contacts I had kept from the retreat. "Frank?" I asked when he picked up. "It's me, the historian from the retreat." "Yeah, I remember." There was a pause. "What's on your mind?" "I can't shake what you said about the jungle." "What do you mean it doesn't let you go?" He sighed, the sound fraught with memories. "You felt it, didn't you? The pull of it. It's not just the stories. Some of us carry things back. Things that whisper at night. I felt cold. I didn't want to admit it, but I had felt that pull, that weight of something unshakable. What do you think it was? Hard to say. But some places they don't forget. I hung up, my mind racing. I thought of that figure in the trees, the uneasiness that had settled over me. Some places don't forget. Did that mean I was now part of that story? Did whatever I sensed in the jungle somehow tie to me? I decided to follow up on Frank's story. I needed to find out more. The next day, I drove back to the cabin, now doubting my decision. Each tree seemed to loom above me like a sentinel. As I pulled in, the atmosphere felt different. The cabin looked untouched, but the air was thick that I stepped inside, heart racing, and felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. The silence wrapped around me. There was no welcoming laughter this time, only the flicker of memories lingering in the corners. I wandered around, my footsteps echoing back to me. Suddenly, I heard it a whisper. It called my name again, softer this time, almost pleading. I turned, but the room was empty. Just shadows where light couldn't reach. I fought the urge to leave but knew I had to confront whatever was here. Then I saw something on the floor near the fireplace. A scrap of paper, crumpled and dark. I bent down to pick it up. As I unfolded it, a cold breeze rushed through the cabin, making the hairs on my neck stand up. That's when I realized the words scrawled on the page weren't just random notes. They were names. Names of soldiers from the Vietnam War. And I recognized one name. It was Frank's. Everything in me froze. Who had left this behind? And why did I feel as if the walls were watching me? I stepped back, and the whispers grew louder, almost angry now. They were spilling out of the corners, urging me to leave. But the names pinned me to the spot that I knew then that I had uncovered something dangerous. The connection was clearer, and yet so much more confusing. I turned to exit but hesitated, a deep sense of dread creeping back in. Before I could move, the temperature dropped further. Someone was in the house. I stood there, frozen, heart pounding like a drum. The shadows around me felt thicker, as if they were moving. I glanced back to the paper in my hand, the names blurring in my vision. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had crossed an unseen line. Who's there? I called out, my voice trembling. The room remained silent, but the chill was suffocating. I strained to hear even the faintest whisper. There was a rustle behind me, just at the edge of the kitchen. I turned slowly, half expecting to see someone step from the darkness. Instead, nothing. I swore my imagination was playing tricks on me, but I felt it again, a presence, watching. Then I heard it, a low, raspy breath that sent chills down my spine. It was close enough that I could almost feel the heat of a body, yet I saw no one. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I fought to stay. I had to know what was happening. Is anyone there? I tried again, my voice barely above a whisper this time. Please, if you're here, just show yourself. As soon as the words left my mouth, a flicker of movement caught my eye. I turned toward the back window where the trees loomed, and there was a shadow darting between the trunks. My heart raced faster. Was it an animal? No, it was too tall, too human. I stepped back, bumping into the coffee table. The names on the paper tumbled from my grip, scattering across the floor. They jumbled together like a chorus of long-forgotten soldiers. Panic surged as I crouched to pick them up, my fingers brushing over the names one by one. As I gathered them, I saw something else. One name was underlined, bold and shaky, William Marcus. I recalled that name. He had been mentioned in Frank's stories, a friend lost to the jungle. My stomach knotted. I felt as if I were trespassing in a history not meant for me. The room seemed to shift, breathing with tension. My gaze darted back to the window. The shadow was gone, but I felt an oppressive weight settling into the space between the walls. I needed to leave. Stumbling over the words in my head, I made my way to the door, each step feeling heavier. The whispers grew louder, almost urgent now, as if they were warning me, urging me away. But I couldn't ignore the names, those connections that felt alive. The doorknob was cold in my hand, and as I turned it, the world outside felt both welcoming and terrifying. The air sparkled with the evening light, but the whispers were relentless, pleading. I stepped outside, but then froze again. There, etched into the porch floor, was a carving. I leaned down, heart racing in my chest. It was the same name I had just discovered, William Marcus. Why was it here? Why now? I backed away, the weight of history pressing down on me. I could feel the jungle's call again, urging me deeper into its secrets. Then I heard footsteps behind me, firm against the wooden floor. They were not my own. My breath caught in my throat. The darkness of the cabin seemed to swallow the light from the porch. I looked back, knowing I had to face whatever was inside. The melody of whispers crescendoed into a roar, urging me to confront the shadows, and that was just the beginning. I turned slowly, dread pooling in my gut. The shadows in the cabin seemed deeper now, curling around the corners like storm clouds. My instincts screamed at me to run, but curiosity held me in place. "Hello?" I called, my voice wavering. No answer came, just the distant creaks of the old house settling. I stepped back inside, the threshold feeling like a barrier between safety and danger. I hesitated as the weight of the door clicked shut behind me. I stood in the chill of the hall, scanning the dim room. My mind raced through the stories Frank had shared. William Marcus was not just a name, he was a person, with a life woven into the memories of those who remained. But the connection was something more now, urging me to dig into what had been left behind. That as I moved into the kitchen, I noticed a glint on the counter. Something shiny caught my eye, a small metal box, its lid slightly ajar. Driven by impulse, I approached it, feeling that whatever lay inside could reveal the answers I sought. The whispers were dim but excited, as if they recognized my need for clarity. I lifted the lid slowly, revealing a tangle of letters, bound together with a faded red ribbon. My heart raced. I reached in hesitantly, pulling out the yellowed pages. The first letter bore the unmistakable handwriting of Frank. "Dearest William," it began. My breath caught as I realized I held a piece of history. As I skimmed through the words, a sense of urgency washed over me. The letters spoke of battles fought in the jungle, of despair and fear. But as I read further, I began to notice something odd. A few letters were addressed to someone named Josephine, but the ink appeared almost frantic, blending into swirling patterns. That I flipped through the pages, my eyes darting back and forth. The letters revealed a secret, something hidden beyond the brave stories. "They're still with us," one letter read, the words shaking with emotion. "The jungle doesn't let go easily." I felt a sensation creeping up my spine, like cold fingers brushing against warm skin. Had they brought something back with them? Were the shadows outside connected to these words? Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the living room, snapping me back to reality. I jumped back, letting the letters slip from my hands. Panic surged as I ran to investigate, heart racing. The living room was dark, almost impenetrable. I fumbled for the light switch, but the power flickered and died, leaving me in near total darkness. The whispers rose again, pressing against me, urging me to leave yet beckoning me closer to the truth. Then, just as I started to back away, I saw a silhouette, gliding across the room, as if it were searching for something lost. "Who is there?" I yelled, my throat tight with fear. But the figure paused, head tilted slightly as though it recognized my voice. The moment stretched into eternity, the air vibrating with tension. My heart pounded as I tried to collect myself, thoughts racing. I was no longer just a bystander in Frank's story, I was part of it now. The figure stepped closer, and instinctively, I reached for the nearest object, a lamp, even if it was just a flimsy defense. But all I could think was this: if they had crossed over from the jungle, what were they seeking? And who were they really? I kept the lamp gripped tightly, the cold metal digging into my palm. The silhouette seemed to shift, merging with the darkness as if it were more shadow than flesh. Show yourself. I demanded, my voice shaky but firm. That it moved again, and my stomach twisted. I felt trapped in a nightmare, helpless as this figure loomed closer. The air grew heavier, thickening around me. Then, a faint glow flickered to life. The light from the lamp illuminated just enough to catch the features of a face. A man. I could see him clearly now, dirt-smudged skin, hollow cheeks, and weary eyes that spoke of untold burdens. He wore tattered fatigues, damp and stained. My breath hitched. This looked like one of the soldiers from Frank's letters. William? I whispered, half hopeful, half terrified. But the figure didn't respond. He stood there, gauging me, his expression unreadable, almost pleading for connection. I wanted to scream, to run, but curiosity rooted me to the spot. That he extended a hand, moving slowly as if cautious not to startle me. I took a cautious step forward, drawn by a strange affinity, as if I could bridge the gap between our worlds. The letters swirled in my mind, pulling at my memory. In one of them, Frank had written about a companion who had not returned. Was this him? Then, without warning, shadows rushed into the room, dark and sweeping. They encircled the soldier, swallowing him whole. My instincts kicked in, and I turned to flee back down the hallway. My heart raced. I stumbled into the kitchen, the notes littering the floor like forgotten remnants. That I had to know more. I had to understand what was happening. Every instinct screamed at me to escape, yet I couldn't just abandon this man to vanish into the night. I bent down, fumbling for the letters. Then I froze when I retrieved one, discovering it bore a message I hadn't seen before. Find Josephine, the letter urged. She must know. Who is Josephine? I whispered into the empty space, hoping for an answer that wouldn't come. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on, bathing the room in an unearthly glow. I turned, breathless, searching for any sign of that soldier. But the living room was empty. The cold was gone, replaced with a suffocating heat. I felt a twinge of regret but also a sense of purpose. Josephine. That name echoed in my mind, and I realized it was the key. Whatever was happening, it centered on her, and I had to find her. I grabbed the letters, stuffing them back into the metal box. They felt heavy in my hands, heavy with secrets yet to be unearthed. As I stood up, determination ignited in my chest. Just then, a loud thump came from the window. I whipped around, scanning the area for movement. The shadows shifted again, this time sliding closer, as if waiting for my next move. I felt it then, the urgency to act. I couldn't wait. I had to uncover the truth about William, Josephine, and the ties that bound them to whatever was lurking in the silence. I made my way back to the front door, but as I stepped outside, the air changed. It buzzed with anticipation, as if the night itself was alive with whispers of a long-buried history. When I saw it, a figure at the edge of the trees, watching me silently. My pulse quickened. This was just the beginning, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for what lay ahead. The figure at the edge of the trees remained still, like a statue carved from shadow. I squinted, trying to discern any detail in the half-light. It was too dark to make out a face, but I could feel its gaze fixed on me, deep and penetrating. Every instinct told me to turn back, yet my feet felt glued to the ground. Who is there? I called out, my voice catching in my throat. No response. The silence around me thickened, wrapping around my thoughts like a fog. I shifted from foot to foot, the cool night air biting into my skin. I had to know. I took a hesitant step closer to the tree line. Suddenly, a rustling sound broke the stillness. I flinched, instinctively raising the lamp higher, the light flooding into the darkness. What I saw sent a jolt of adrenaline through my veins. A woman emerged, her silhouette stark against the darker surroundings. Her clothes were tattered, as if she had been through hell and back. Josephine? I whispered, the name spilling from my lips as I took another cautious step forward. Her features became clearer, framed by wild, unkempt hair. But her eyes were wide and filled with a mix of fear and urgency. "You shouldn't be here," she warned, her voice barely above a whisper, yet it was commanding. "They're watching." "Who's watching?" I asked, my heart pounding harder. I didn't mean to sound confrontational, but fear pushed my words forward. I needed answers, and she might hold the key. "They're always watching. You must leave now." With that, she turned her gaze back towards the trees, her body tense, as if she were expecting something to emerge. "Wait," I urged, desperation creeping into my voice. "I found a letter. It said to find you. I need to know what happened with William." At the mention of his name, her breath caught, and her eyes darted back to mine. "William," she echoed, pain seeping through her voice. "William he was taken. We didn't know. We thought we were safe." "Taken? By what? What happened?" I pressed, trying to weave the threads of confusion together. Josephine seemed to hesitate, caught between fear and the desire to share. "It's not just shadows. It's something more. It follows the soldiers. It followed him." She glanced over her shoulder again, a shiver traveling down her spine. Then my mind raced with that information. "Is that what I saw? Is that why he came to me? Can you help me find him?" I took another step towards her, my determination spilling out, but she flinched as I moved. "There isn't much time," she insisted. "You need to understand, if you look for him, you're inviting it in. You cannot awaken what lies beneath." Before I could respond, she turned to run, disappearing into the darkness of the woods. Panic rose within me. I couldn't let her go. But the urgency of her warning lingered in my thoughts like a heavy fog. What was this thing that hunted William? As I stood there, momentarily frozen, I noticed one of her shoes left behind in the dirt. It was so out of place, almost like a breadcrumb leading me further into the unknown. The shadows at the edge of the trees seemed to ripple, and I felt a cold dread clutch at my heart. Without thinking, I picked up her shoe and took a deep breath. I had to go after her. But as I stepped into the thicket, the woods erupted into a cacophony of rustling leaves and snapping twigs. This felt like crossing a line into something I couldn't understand. Then, a guttural sound echoed from behind me, a growl that chilled my blood. Something was coming, and it was no longer content to remain hidden. I turned, heart racing, and took off into the woods, the shoe clenched tightly in my fist, knowing that each step brought me closer to answers and closer to danger. I ran blindly into the woods, branches scraping against my skin. The only sound was my ragged breathing and the crunch of leaves beneath my feet. I had to stay focused. Josephine's warning echoed in my mind. Something hunted William, and now it was hunting me too. That I didn't know how far I'd gone when I stumbled into a small clearing. The moon shone through the trees, bathing everything in an eerie silver light. I paused to catch my breath, clutching Josephine's shoe like a lifeline. What was I doing? The fear she'd instilled in me flickered like the lantern still hanging at the edge of the clearing, its glow fading into the dark. I should have turned back. But then, I noticed something in the dirt. Another shoe print. But it wasn't Josephine's. It was larger, deeper. I crouched down to inspect it. Then I heard it again, the growl, closer this time. Panic washed over me. I had to move, to get out of the open. I scanned the edges of the clearing, looking for any way to hide. Just then, something shifted in the darkness. My heart sank as a figure stepped out from behind the trees. It wasn't Josephine, and it wasn't human. The shadows around it seemed to swirl, coiling like smoke against its form. My breath caught in my throat as it lifted its head, revealing glowing eyes that pierced through the darkness. "What do you want?" I shouted, though my voice trembled. It just stared at me with those haunting eyes, unblinking, unwavering. That sense of despair surged through me. Whatever this thing was, it knew me, and it felt like it was feeding off my fear. Before I could think further, I turned and sprinted deeper into the woods. I had to escape the creature, but as I ran, the underbrush seemed to thicken around my legs, pulling me down. With every step, the forest warped. Trees twisted in monstrous shapes, and the darkness threatened to swallow me whole. Then I saw a faint glimmer of something metallic, half buried in the ground. I skidded to a stop and bent down. It was a locket, tarnished but unmistakably familiar. I opened it, revealing a photo of a younger Josephine and a soldier, his face etched with a haunted expression. I flipped it, hoping for more answers. There, engraved on the inside, were initials, WF. My chest tightened. This was William S. Lockett. I was about to stand when a rustle from behind me shattered my concentration. I turned slowly, locket in hand, dread pooling in my stomach. The creature was closer now, stalking me with deliberate slowness. I was trapped. Before I could move, the growl erupted again, louder and more menacing this time. The shadows danced wildly, and I knew it was now or never. I had to decide: fight back or run again. But then, something unexpected happened. A voice emerged from the darkness, low and raspy. "You shouldn't have come here." Realization hit me like a punch. It was not just the creature that was hunting me. It was something else entirely, something that tied back to Josephine and William, and now, I was caught in the twisted web of their story. I stumbled back, the locket slipping from my fingers and hitting the ground with a dull thud. It felt like the very air around me thickened, tightening against my throat. The creature shifted, its glowing eyes narrowing, almost teasing my fear. I was trapped, caught in a darkness that seemed to pulse with malice. "What do you know?" I gasped out, my voice cracking. It was a desperate question, one that I hoped would break the suffocating tension. The creature didn't respond. Instead, it moved closer, its form shifting in the moonlight. I could see now that it had limbs long and half hidden in the shadows like something out of a nightmare. In that moment, I felt a flicker of courage. I couldn't let it consume me. I turned and ran again, the darkness wrapping around me like a shroud. The forest loomed larger and more chaotic with every frantic step. But there was something else, a flicker of light just ahead. I slowed as I neared it. A cabin. A small structure seemed to rise from the trees, its windows glowing with flickering lights. Hope surged within me. I dashed toward it, clawing at the door, nearly colliding with it to get inside. It was dark, cloaked in shadows and the smell of damp wood. "Hello," I shouted, afraid to disturb the silence but needing to know if anyone else was here. No response. Just the creaking of the old wood and the sound of my own ragged breath. I moved deeper into the cabin, looking for a weapon or anything to defend myself. My fingers brushed against something cold and metallic, a shovel leaning against the wall. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. That's when I noticed it, a dusty photo on the mantel, obscured by age. I wiped it clean. Two smiling faces stared back at me, Josephine and William. Their eyes were shining with love and trust. I recognized the setting, it was the clearing I had just fled. Before I could process it, the growl erupted again, shaking the walls of the cabin. The creature was outside, hunting. It knew I was here. I held the shovel tightly, my heart racing. I could hear it moving, pacing around the cabin like a predator, testing its prey. Then I remembered the locket. Where was it? I ran back to the door and pushed it open slightly, peering out into the swirling dark. There it was, gleaming in the moonlight. I could see the locket lying on the forest floor where I had dropped it. Suddenly, the growl transformed into a low, almost playful snarl. My breath quickened as I stepped back into the cabin. Would I risk going out there? Did I dare? Just then, a cold wind swept through, causing the door to creak and rattle. I turned instinctively, and that's when I saw it. A faster figure, flashing by the window. Not the creature. Someone else. My pulse pounded in my ears. Who was in the woods with me? Was it another victim, or worse, another hunter, now, I faced an impossible choice: retrieve the locket and confront the creature, or confront whatever was waiting in the shadows. My heart raced as I realized I may not have much time. And whatever came next, it would only deepen the mystery of this dreadful night. I hesitated, my hand still on the door. The sight of that fleeting shadow outside swirled in my mind. I was already terrified enough without adding another element to the chaos. Still, I couldn't ignore the sharp instinct screaming at me to stay alert. The growl came again, a deep rumble that shook the walls. I could imagine the creature lurking, waiting for me to make a decision. It was like a coiled spring, ready to snap. I had to do something, but what? I took a deep breath and leaned against the wall, trying to steady my nerves. Should I look for the figure outside? Or go after the locket? The cabin felt like an increasingly tight cage, restraining my choices. Then, another noise broke through the tension, a soft thud followed by a scraping sound. My heart raced again. It was close. Whatever was lurking outside was no longer pacing. It had come closer to the cabin. I stepped back, gripping the shovel with both hands, ready to defend myself. Suddenly, a loud crash came from behind the cabin, like something heavy had fallen. I jumped, eyes wide. Then silence enveloped the space again, thick and stifling. Time felt suspended, and I could hear my own heartbeat drumming in my ears. Gathering whatever courage I had left, I decided to peek outside. I opened the door again, only a crack this time, and squinted into the shadows. My gaze darted around, but the forest was still. Then I remembered the figure. "Hello?" I called softly, unsure if this was wise. The response was silence, but something shifted just beyond the reach of the moon's light. My heart pounded against my ribs. Just as I was about to retreat, I saw it, a flash of color, then nothing. I pushed the door wider and stepped outside despite my better judgment. The air felt electric as I left the safety of the cabin behind. "Show yourself," I shouted, barely keeping my voice steady. No answer. But then, a sharp, quiet rustle from my left made me swing around. A dark shape darted between the trees, moving faster than I could follow. I was about to call out again when a blur whizzed past me, something sleek and low to the ground. It turned sharply, and there it was again, a quick glimmer of fur. Was that the creature? Or was it something else entirely? Before I could think, I took off toward the locket, my feet pounding against the forest floor. I couldn't look back. My instincts drove me forward. I had to get to the locket. Then, as I crouched to grab it, I noticed something else buried in the leaves beside it, a small object glinting in the moonlight. I hesitated, my fingers hovering over it. I didn't know if I should take it or run. The growl sounded again, closer than before. This was my chance, but I could feel the presence of whatever hunted me closing in fast. I snatched up the locket and the object, holding them tightly as I sprinted back toward the cabin. Throwing myself inside, I slammed the door shut behind me. My breath was ragged, but I took a moment to catch it. I glanced down at what I'd picked up, a small silver key. What did it unlock? And what other secrets awaited me that night? Only time would tell, but it felt like the night was far from finished. As I leaned against the cabin door, my heart still racing, I clutched the locket and the silver key tightly in my palms. The growl outside was now more of a low rumble, like thunder in the distance, yet somehow personal, as if threatening only me. I glanced around, the cabin suddenly feeling less like a refuge and more like a cage. That I moved to the window, peering out into the thick darkness, searching for movement. My mind was flooded with Josephine's warnings. Something hunted William, and it had followed him into death. Did I dare to believe it was hunting me too? What would that mean for my safety? A flicker of movement caught my eye near the trees. The figure I had seen earlier, the shadow that had darted away, reappeared at the edge. It was a dark silhouette against the night. My breath caught. Was it Josephine? But the shape felt off, its outline too jagged, blending almost perfectly with the trees. "Who is there?" I whispered, but my voice felt tiny against the vast expanse of the woods. The figure seemed to hesitate, and I took a cautious step closer to the door, heart pounding. The growl reverberated again, closer now, almost as if it had circled back, waiting for an opening. In that moment, it dawned on me, was the creature not just a hunter but also drawn to whatever secrets lurked in this cursed cabin? It depended on fear, and I had walked directly into its territory, almost purposefully. I had come searching for answers, and now those answers were threatening my life. That I turned back inside and scanned the room. I needed to find a plan, a means of defense, any way to escape this terrifying fate. I inspected the room again, searching for a place to hide or something to barricade the door. My gaze fell on that dusty photo of Josephine and William on the mantel. Was there a clue hidden within their smiles? I pulled it back, examining the back for any inscriptions or words. As I did, the little silver key I had found slipped through my fingers, hitting the floor with a small clink. It rolled under the table, but in that instant, I felt a rush of urgency. I dropped down and grabbed it, but something felt wrong. Like I wasn't alone. The shadows shifted again near the window. I stood, slowly moving toward the sink, trying to stay out of sight while keeping the photo clenched tightly in my fist. It felt like the walls were breathing, closing in as the growl transitioned into a snarl, raw and threatening. Then the door rattled. My heart raced, and instinct took over. I hurried to grab the shovel again, holding it close, ready to defend myself if needed. Suddenly, the door burst open, and there was the creature, the darkness exploding through the threshold, taking shape before my eyes. As its form twisted grotesquely, I couldn't quite comprehend it. Part human, part shadow, everything about it felt so wrong. It oozed not just darkness, but the weight of lost souls. With a cry, I swung the shovel, but the shadow just melted into the air, reforming behind me in an instant. It wasn't tangible enough to strike, yet its presence suffocated me. I had to get out, but Josephine's words echoed in my mind: if I sought for William, I would invite it in. I sprinted to the back door, wrenching it open. Outside was a suffocating void, but something in me knew I had to get to the edge of the trees. If I could just get to the clearing. I shot forward, branches clawing at my skin, the ground uneven beneath my feet. Then I heard it again, that low growl, closer than before. Something was right behind me. I pushed harder. I couldn't let it catch me, not like this. William! I shouted, feeling a wave of desperation wash over me. If his name had any power, I needed to unleash it now. Where are you? Instinctively, I crashed into the clearing, the moonlight pouring down in gleaming beams. I searched desperately, gathering my breath, but then I stopped in my tracks. The locket slipped from my fingers, clattering to the ground, and at that very moment, the darkness around me twisted again, rhythmically throbbing as something emerged from the shadows. In that frozen moment, the figure stepped forward, and my breath ceased. It was William, the soldier I had glimpsed before, his form wavering in the light. But the pleading in his eyes was unmistakable. "Help me," he mouthed, and I felt an undeniable connection, a pull between our souls. This was no longer just a hunt, it was about redemption. The weight of his past hung heavy in the air around us, and I knew he needed my help even from beyond. Above him, the creature shrieked, more feral than ever, as the shadows converged around us. I gripped the little key tightly, it pulsing with an unexplainable energy. "I will find you, Josephine," I shouted, as if those words had the power to cut through the chaos. In that moment, the growl turned to stuttering chaos, as if the darkness itself were enraged by my proclamation. I had no idea if my words would hold power or if they would seal my fate, but I felt the locket call, its warmth a promise of connection and hope. With one last surge of resolve, I reached toward William, my hand outstretched, hoping to bridge the gap, and then everything erupted into blinding light. And suddenly, I was left standing in an empty clearing, no shadows and no growls, just the soft rustle of leaves in the night. I turned around, feeling lighter somehow, but uncertainty settled deep in my chest. I had confronted unfathomable darkness, yet answers still eluded me. The whispers returned, but this time, they felt different. They weren't simply taunting or vengeful. No, they carried a weight of stories yet to be told, unfinished connections shimmering in the moonlit air. In the silence that followed, I realized I still had questions. What would happen to Josephine? Where did her story go? And was I forever woven into the fabric of their haunting, or had I released them? As I stood there, surrounded by the echoes of history and unresolved tales, I knew I would never fully escape this night. I moved forward, unnerved yet determined, forever changed by the darkness I had faced and the light that had just begun to whisper back.